Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Tonic Accord. If you're catching us on the live stream here, hello as well. We are going to be watching the second and final presidential debate between President Donald Trump and ex-VP Joe Biden. And Alex and I are here pouring some drinks. We might even do a little drinking game here or a little bingo. I actually have the bingo sheet ready to be filled out and stuff. Um, but yeah, what do you think? Are you excited?
Yeah, man. Honestly, I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah.
Clearly, I don't even think I need to mention how bad of a week it's been for Trump. So I'm just curious if he's going to try to not interrupt and be the nice guy, or if he's actually just going to do his shenanigans. I give him maybe 20 minutes of decency, followed by like the rest of the debate of just being Trump. So,
I have heard that they're going to have like muted sections. Now it's not like the moderator
mm-hmm.
has an on off button. It's like for 2 minutes one person is muted and another person can speak. That's what I hear is going to happen. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm not sure. I'm not sure because, in one hand, people might be thankful for that because a big complaint was everyone was talking over each other. On another
Mm-hmm.
hand, for the Biden camp, um, people didn't like when Trump interrupted and acted out, and it actually hurt Trump in the long run, I think. So it almost is better if you leave him on, right? Let him be his own demise, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Is I actually think that muting the mic might actually hurt Biden, at
Yeah.
least in terms of conspiracy theories and like a lot of the rhetoric going around on the like social media on the right. Is that it's going to be easy to say, oh well, they're muting Trump, and it's. I agree with you. I think that Trump interrupting looks bad. So yeah, we're going to see what happens. Honestly, I'm just curious. Someone told me today that Trump has a mystery guest who's a witness in the Hunter Biden stuff. So it almost seems exactly to me like 2016, where they brought those Bill Clinton women that were harassed by Bill Clinton, at the Trump Hillary debate. It feels very similar. Like they're going to try to paint Biden as just a corrupt bad man.
Yeah, I imagine Hunter Biden's going to come up a lot. I'm interesting to see
Mm-hmm.
how Joe Biden has to know this, so he has to. I'm interested to see what his like prepared statement is or his defense. But yeah, I think if you look at polling, Trump has to come out swinging here. He really needs to get a decent shift in the polls to start bringing this back. Like people always look at 2016 the polls were wrong or whatever. Well, the polls started seeing a shift late, right? It looked like Hillary Clinton for a while, and then the gap narrowed in the last few weeks. Well, we're in the last few weeks, and the gap hasn't really narrowed. The Hunter Biden story hasn't really shifted major polls. Now, maybe it will tonight if you see how he brings it up. But Donald Trump needs to do something. He needs to hit somewhere, and he needs to get a shift in the polls from this debate. Otherwise, that's kind of it. This is kind of the last hurrah before the last little weeks of steam.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Like this literally is the last hurrah, and I'm just curious. I'm just curious what we're going to see. I don't think anything's going to be changed, but I honestly would just as kind of our podcast we talk about a lot. I'm just curious to actually hear some good discussion, which obviously I think I've come to the wrong place, but I just hope they're semi decent. I don't know. Maybe that's a tall order.
It will be interesting because if they are doing this kind of 2 minutes in a vacuum thing, it does change it completely from the first debate. It'll be interesting to see, Donald Trump going 2 minutes just on his own. Well, we've seen that a lot, right? On a
Mm-hmm.
rally. I imagine he'll go kind of into a rally phase, which might benefit him. I don't know. But Joe Biden, 2 minutes uninterrupted. We hadn't really seen that. We didn't really see that at all in the first debate. And so, that's a lot of space for him to fill up, especially someone who's known for stumbling on his words. So we'll see how he
Right.
fills up those 2 minutes. All
Yeah.
right.
My my theory, yeah, is that Biden actually, if Trump lets him talk, it could actually hurt Biden
Yeah.
sometimes. So
Yes. 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 So Biden will have to have these long open air pauses to like get his, he has to get his thoughts together and make a cohesive sentence. He's capable of doing it. Of course he is, but he struggles sometimes. Let's see
Yep.
what happens. Let's see what
Yep,
happens.
I'm curious. Here we go.
Paul has
Cheers, my
promised
friends.
to remain
Cheers,
silent.
yes, and
No
let's keep an eye on the
cheers,
bingo,
boos, or
too.
other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the
huge
stage former
shut
Vice
up.
President Joe Biden and
So we get the
President
free
Donald
one.
J. Trump. And I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section,
All right,
each
I have our
candidate
bingo
will
on
have
the
2
screen,
minutes
and we can I can
uninterrupted
edit
to
it
answer
too.
my first question. The debate commission will
Okay.
then turn
So we have
on
free.
the
Perfect.
microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones
Here we go, brother.
will remain on.
Here we
But on
go.
behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you.
Shout out to Jamie.
The country is heading
Scotland up
into
in
a
the
dangerous
house.
new phase.
There
More
you
than
go.
40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans
How's it
have
going,
died from
JD
COVID.
Nolan?
So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the
Yep, they're
greatest
starting with
economy
this.
in the
It's
world
valid.
in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone.
Greatest
And there are
economy.
some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed.
Oh, he
which
said the
is
2 million lives,
military
by the
is
way.
going to distribute the vaccine.
He said, remember,
I can
they
tell
said
you
projected
from
2
personal
million
experience that
deaths.
I was in
It's
the
pretty,
hospital.
yeah, it's pretty
I
bad
had
if that's his argument
and
is
I
that,
got
well, they said it
better,
could
and
be
I will
2
tell
million
you
and we only have
that,
200,000.
I had something that
It's a
they
great,
gave me,
great way to
a therapeutic,
spin that.
I guess they would call it. Some
But
people
does that
could
count
say
as
it
the
was a
bingo?
cure.
It's on the bingo.
But I was in for a short period
Yeah,
of time,
I would-
and I
I
got
would
better
put it,
very
yeah. Let's
fast,
go
or I
with
wouldn't be
it.
here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people
Oh, did he
are
say he's immune?
getting better. We
Yeah, he's
have
all right.
a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. With the, if you take a
Oh,
look at
poor
what
Donnie.
we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators. We're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month.
Oh, there we go, Drew.
Distributing
Immune.
them all over
Ding,
the
ding,
world.
ding.
It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially, anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States
But it's
of
not
America.
going away.
We're in a situation
We're having
where
another
there are
surge, man,
1,000
right now.
deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe,
Damn, there's
as
a
the New
million
England
people
Medical
watching
Journal
the
said, they're starting
ABC
from
one.
a very low rate.
Really?
We're starting
I've
from
never
very
seen a
high
million
rate.
people in the
The
live stream
expectation is
in
we'll have
one
another
channel.
200,000 Americans dead.
I was hoping you were going to say it's our live
between
stream,
now
but
and the end of
apparently
the
not.
year.
I wish.
If we just wore these masks,
I
the
wish.
president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan.
Trump's
no
biting his tongue.
comprehensive
You
plan.
just know
This
it.
is crazy. This is what
make sure we
debates
have
used to be,
everyone
dude.
encouraged to wear
This is
a
crazy.
mask
Look at he's
all
like
the time.
writing
I
stuff
would make
down. This
sure
is what I
we
used to
move in the
remember,
direction
like
of rapid
boring
testing,
Obama versus
investing in
Romney
rapid
debates were
testing.
like.
I would make sure
Yep.
that we set up national standards as to how to open up.
What if this helps
schools
Trump?
and
Because
open
people
up
are like,
businesses so
oh,
they
he's
can be
actually
safe.
taking notes
He's
and
so
setting the F up.
professional. Yeah.
Financial
I
resources
bet you
to be
his
able to
campaign
do
manager
that.
was like, take
We're in a
notes. even if you
situation
don't have
now
anything.
where
Both of them
the
do.
New
Right.
England
Like
Medical
you're taking
Journal,
notes.
one of the most serious journals
Completely.
in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis,
He needs to
has
hammer
been
that home.
absolutely
No
tragic.
comprehensive
and so,
plan.
folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like
Oh, he
to
said
follow
folks.
up with you in
Biden
your
says
comments.
folks,
You
so we have
talked
another
about
one on the
taking a
bingo
therapeutic.
thing.
I assume you're referencing
Folks,
Regeneron. You
I
also
will
said a
take care of
vaccine
it.
will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
I'm going to start taking
Is-
No,
notes
it's not
on
a
my
guarantee,
hand
but
so I
it
look
will
like
be
Trump
by the
right
end
now.
of the year, but I think
Right,
it has
exactly,
a good
yes,
chance. There are two
yes.
companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very
Can you
quickly.
tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing
Boom,
very
dude,
well.
there's a
Pfizer is
stock
doing
increases
very well,
tomorrow
and
morning.
we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on
Even though
very
Johnson
closely with
Johnson,
other
even though
countries,
Johnson
in
Johnson
particular
halted, I
Europe.
think.
Let me follow up with you, and
vaccine
because
trial.
They
this
did.
is new
I
information.
think last
You
week.
have said a vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest. for enough
Regeneron's from
Americans
aborted
to get
fetuses, Trump.
vaccinated. And
Kind
even
of.
then, they say the country will be wearing masks
something like
and
that, right? It's
distancing
from,
into
stem
2022. Is your
cells?
timeline realistic?
Yeah,
I
it's from
think
like
my
embryonic
timeline's
stem
going to be
cells, I
more
think, from
accurate.
like
I don't know that they're
kidney
counting
cells
on
or
the
something.
military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular that's the head of logistics, and this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine, and we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans
Jesus, I
confidence
hope not.
in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter, and he has no clear
Winter's
plan.
coming,
There's
dude.
no
Game of
prospect
Thrones.
that there's going to be a vaccine
Winter's
available
effing
for
coming,
the
bro.
majority of the American people before the middle
shall
of next
see.
year.
And I hope it's
President
not
Trump,
like
your
season
reaction, he
8.
says you
I don't
have no
think we're going
plan.
to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying,
Oh,
I
God.
should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal. But it was a total disaster. Had
What was
that
that?
had this kind of
That's just so funny
numbers,
how that's the thing they're bringing up now is the
700,000 people would be
H1N1. Like,
dead right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you
Dude,
know,
it's
was
apples
his,
to oranges.
chief of
H1N1
staff,
coronavirus.
said
Like, I don't get it.
was
I don't get this
catastrophic.
comparison.
It was horrible. We didn't know what
I got
we were doing.
H1N1.
Now he comes
Really?
up and he tells us how to
Yeah.
do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your
I
reaction?
say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up.
Is
I
that a
don't know. He's
direct-
obviously
That's
made a lot of money
particularly.
someplace,
It's not
but he
particularly
has
a bad
this
statement from
thing
Trump,
about living
actually.
in a
No, that's
basement.
funny.
I will
People
say.
can't do that. By
Is
the
that a
way,
direct
I, as the
insult, do you
president,
think, or
couldn't
no?
do that. I'd love to put myself
Yeah,
in a basement or in a
I think
beautiful
so.
room in the White House.
Like he
The fact
does
that
it.
Biden's
for a year
laughing.
and a half until it disappears. I can't do
Direct
that.
insult.
And, Kirsten, every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled
Covering the bases.
everything. I said, this is dangerous, and you catch it. And I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great
Man,
hospitals.
his answers are
And
so
now I recovered.
rambly, man. I mean, not that I'm surprised anymore. But
99.9 of young people recover. 99%
Dude,
of people
Trump
recover.
is the
We have
is
to
the
recover.
radio
We can't
caller who
close
calls
up our
in
nation. We have
drunk
to
at like
open our
2 a.m.
yeah, it
And
really
we can't
is.
close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
And of course, the CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You
Can I
have
respond to that?
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning. That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch out of habit where their wife or husband was, is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on. We're dying with it because he has never said, you said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not yours
China.
fault that he
There's
came here
China.
either. It's China's fault. They kept
China's.
it from going into the rest of China for the most
Bingo.
part. But they didn't keep it from coming out to
Almost.
the
We have a
world,
bunch
including
now.
Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry. The warm weather. Don't worry. Maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that, but a lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range
look,
of
he can't
things the
interrupt.
president
Look at
said.
his face.
Even
He can't
today,
interrupt.
He
I
thinks
love it.
we are in control.
I love it.
We're about to lose
Look at him. He wants to. He
200,000
wants to
people.
so bad.
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding.
It's a
on
look
that,
of
but
anger.
Just to finish this, when
I
I
was
closed,
kidding. I was
he
kidding.
said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. What Nancy Pelosi said the
Oh,
same
dear.
thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said,
Which is true.
This
Nancy
is a
Pelosi
Yeah,
did
that
tell
was
people to go to
stupid.
Chinatown,
That
but
was
he called me
stupid.
racist even.
Yeah.
And because I was closing
But
it
it's a
to
bigger
China.
story than
Now
that,
he
right?
says I should have
Yeah,
closed
but
it
that
earlier.
doesn't.
It just, Joe,
that
it
does not-
doesn't
I
work.
didn't say either of those
like,
things.
negate
You
all the
certainly
things he
did.
didn't do
You
either.
certainly
And I did. I talked
Exactly.
about his xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to
He
handling
thought
this.
I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well, let's-
That's obvious.
we should have
Oh,
closed
oh.
it.
Is that, do you want
I
to
was
respond
interrupted.
quickly, Vice President
No.
Biden?
Was that? No,
Okay.
hold on.
Let's talk about your different
Ooh.
strategies toward dealing
I
with
think
this. Mr.
kinda.
Vice President, you suggested you would support
He was
new
like the
shutdowns
moderator
if
now.
scientists recommended it.
True.
What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his
Interesting
ineptitude
question.
that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in a golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Oh, well, no, I'm not shutting down the neighborhood, but there are, look, they need standards. The standard is if you have a reproduction rate
Not
in
shutting
the
down
community
today.
that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up. more social distancing. Do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums. Do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
Please.
I
and
do
then
agree
have
with
a follow-up.
Biden
you,
that
and I
opening up
appreciate
schools
that.
is more
Look,
complicated
all
than
he
just
does is
rhetoric.
talk about
It
shutdowns,
is.
but forget about
And
him.
so is, like,
his Democrat governors, Cuomo in New
stimuluses,
York.
right? Like, if
you
you have
look
to
at what's
shut down
going on in
businesses, make sure they
California.
can stay
You look at
afloat and reopen
Pennsylvania,
later.
North Carolina.
We need to
Yep.
make
Democrats,
comprehensive
Democrats
stimulus
all,
bills.
they're shut
It is
down so
unprecedented,
tight,
but we need to
and
make
they're
unprecedented
dying.
moves, and
They're
we're not.
dying. And he supports
Totally
all these
agree.
people.
Yeah.
All he talks about
And
is
I actually
shutdowns.
think
No,
both
we're
parties
not
could
gonna
do
shut
better
down,
with this
and we have
stimulus
to
bill.
open our
It's like they're
schools.
looking
And
over
it's
each
like,
other
as
on
an
everything,
example,
where
I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people, I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person
You're
and
also a
insist
billionaire.
they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston
Yeah, with the
became
best
the
care.
latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing
Drew, I feel like we
suicide.
do have a
There's
country,
depression,
but maybe that's just
alcohol,
me.
drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before.
Everything
There's
in him is
abuse,
so, like,
tremendous abuse.
I had
We
the
have to
best,
open our
but if
country.
you don't vote for me,
You know,
you'll
I've said
have
it
the
often.
absolute
The
worst.
cure
Like,
cannot
everything
be
is such a
worse than the
hyperbole.
problem itself.
Vice
And that's
President.
what's happening.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your
Simply
response.
Has
not
Biden
true.
actually ever said
We ought
he
to be
wants
able
to
to
close
walk and
everything
chew
down?
gum at
I'm
the
not
same
really sure on
time.
that.
No,
We ought to be able to safely open, but when they need resources to open, you need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected.
Okay.
You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. So don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
By the way, I will say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York, it's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money.
Then make a
Putting up
stimulus.
plexiglass is unbelievably expensive, and it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle
Totally agreed.
wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take a look at New York and what's happened to my wonderful city
Yeah.
for so
Like
many
you said,
years.
Drew.
I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look
Vice
at what
President
New
Biden.
York has done in terms of turning the curve down.
It is true.
in
I've heard
terms
New
of the
York's a
number of people
freaking
dying.
ghost
Yeah.
town
And
right
I
now.
don't look at this in
But
terms
I've
of
also
the way
heard,
he
well,
does.
but they were
Blue
also one
states
of the
and red
worst at the
states.
beginning of
They're
the
all
pandemic,
United
and now they're
States.
doing
And look
way
at the
better.
states that are having such a
True.
spike
It's-
in
it's-
the coronavirus.
it's the
They're
trade-off.
the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need.
That was a great line.
Money's already
Blue
been
states, red
passed to
states, the
do
American,
that. It's
United
been out
States,
there
yeah.
since the
good.
beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when
about-
you say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been closed, and they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes
Mario,
problems.
he needs those seniors back. He lost those seniors.
Oh,
In
yeah.
the world by far.
It's
That's
not
why
looking
we have
good
so
with
many
seniors
cases.
right
Let me
now.
follow up with you before we move on to our next section. President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci the nation's
Yeah, man.
best
Side
known
note, I was in
infectious
Trump
disease
country
expert,
a lot
quote,
of the week
a disaster.
up to
You
here.
described
I saw a
him
lot
and
of older
other
people
medical
wearing
experts as,
masks.
quote,
You know,
idiots. If you're
the
not
mask might
listening
say
to
Trump
them,
on
who are you
it,
listening
but
to as you fight
older
them?
people are
listening to
scared.
all of
Older
them,
people are
including
scared.
Anthony. I get along
Yeah,
very well with
definitely.
Anthony, but he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know,
Look at
this
Joe.
is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said this is not going to be a problem. We are not
call
going to have a
bullshit on that
problem
one.
I
at
think he's
all.
a
When Joe
Democrat,
says
but
that
that's
I
okay.
said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm
So
not
McCarthyist.
knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody
Yeah,
knew
I had
what
no
this thing
idea.
was. Nobody
I
knew
have no
where
idea
it
what
was
Fauci
coming
is.
from.
I
what
don't
it
know
was.
either.
We've
I've
learned a
never,
lot.
he's
But
never
Anthony
given his
said,
political
don't wear
opinion. He's
masks.
just
Now
given
he wants to wear
scientific
masks.
facts.
Anthony
Yeah,
also said,
he's not a
if
politician.
you look back, exact words. Here's his exact words. This is no problem. This
Yeah,
is
but that's
gonna go
because
away
there was a
soon.
shortage,
So he's allowed
and
to
he
make
didn't
that
want
that
panic
was,
He
buying.
happens to be a
it's
good
out of
person.
context, and that
Vice
was in
President Biden, your
February.
response quickly, and then we're going to move on
Yeah.
to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew
happens
in
to be a good
January
person.
and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us. Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we found out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street.
So
and
he
said,
did
"This is a
basically what
really
Fauci
dangerous
did,
thing,"
right?
And a memo out of that meeting, not from his
Well, Fauci was
administration,
trying to
but
save
from some
masks
of the
for the
brokers,
medical
said,
field.
"Sell short because we
True.
gotta
He's
get
trying to
out."
save lives,
It's a
I guess.
dangerous
Well,
problem.
this is
I'm going to
one
give you
this
30
is one I
seconds to
haven't-
respond, and then we're
The
going
Wall
to
Street
move
one,
on.
I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it.
I haven't.
You have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money.
Right.
And every
That
time
was a
you raise
weirdie.
money, deals are made, Joe. I could raise so much more money as
Doesn't Trump
president
have a
and as somebody
giant
that
bank
knows
account in
most of
China
those
that just was
people.
unmasked
I could call
recently?
the heads of Wall Street, the
I'm gonna
heads
call
of
this
That's
wild
sketchier to
tangent.
me,
in
personally.
America.
I'm calling this
I would
tangent
blow away
because this
every
was not
record,
the
but I don't want to do
question.
that because it puts me in a bad
Yep.
position. And then you bring up
Definitely
Wall Street.
agreed.
You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact,
No, he doesn't.
we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to
Don't
move
tell
on.
me about Wall
Average
We're gonna-
contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night,
Oh, boy.
top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and
Oh,
Iran
boy.
are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information,
My
these officials
precious.
say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved.
Any candidate should say
China's
that.
been involved to some degree, and now
Yeah.
we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going
Great.
on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's stalking them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, well, I shouldn't, well, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a
Yeah,
Russian
he didn't want to bring it
pawn.
up
He's
because of
being
Hunter
fed
Biden. Here we
information
go.
that
He
is
should know.
Russian.
Yep.
That is not
yeah.
true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find
It's a whole
out that
can of worms, my
everything that's
friend.
going on here
But he has a
about
point,
Russia
though.
is wanting to make sure
He does.
I do not
Compromised
get
as hell.
elected
We
the
shouldn't
next
trust
president of the United
anything about
States
Rudy Giuliani.
because they know I know them, and they
I've read
know
reports
me.
that also
I
he's
don't
like
understand why
significantly
this
an alcoholic,
president is
according to a lot of
unwilling to
medical
take on
officials,
Putin
and
when
basically he
he's
just gets
actually
drunk
paying
and
bounties to
tweets
kill
and
American
talks.
soldiers in
Well, now you see that thing on
Afghanistan,
Borat where he's
engaged in activities that
fondling
are
his
trying
nuts
to
on Borat.
destabilize
Nice.
all of NATO.
Never
I don't
great,
know why he
never a
doesn't
great
do it, but
vibe
it's worth
for
asking the
trustworthiness,
question,
at least.
why isn't that
If
being
that's his
done?
thing, good for him,
Any
but
country
whatever.
that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For two
That gets
elections
my
in a
vote
row now,
alone,
there has
right
been
there, what
substantial
Biden said.
interference from
Yeah,
foreign
for real.
adversaries.
We
What
need
would
a
you do in your
real
next
foreign- a
term
robust
to put an
foreign
end to this?
policy
2 minutes
again, instead of
uninterrupted.
this
Let me
bullshit.
respond to the first part. As
Iran and
Joe
Russia are
answered.
bad
Joe got
actors.
$3.5 million
Deal
from
with them.
Russia, and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was
And
the
so
mayor
did you,
of
brother.
Moscow's wife, and you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million, and someday you're going to have to explain why did you get 3.5. I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that, and through John, who is John Ratcliffe.
Okay,
who
what
is
about Malaysia and
fantastic,
Pakistan
he
and
said the
China,
one thing that's common to both of them,
Saudi
they
Arabia?
both want you to lose, because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions,
You kidding me,
between
indeed, right?
all of what I've done with NATO, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra 130 billion, going to 420 billion dollars a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher
What is that?
on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell
I
you,
didn't know
they
Joe
were
Biden
so
was the
bad,
housekeeper.
They took over the
All of a sudden.
Is that I
You
think it's the
remember that
expression,
very
but I
well?
don't know what it
During
is.
your term,
Yeah, I've never
during
heard that
you
either,
and
man.
Barack Obama,
Maybe it's what
they took
70
over a
plus
big
year olds
part
say.
of
Yeah, that's
what
what
should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them,
pre-boomers
but you
say.
were getting a lot of money
Malarkey
from Russia.
and
They were paying
selling
you a lot
pillows
of
and
money,
sheets or
and they
whatever.
probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were
they're-
raking
I just
in,
love
you and
Trump,
your
Trump
family.
talking
And Joe,
about
you were
shadiness.
vice president when some
It's always
of this
funny
was
when
he
happening.
talks about
And
that.
it
And
should have never
nepotism.
happened. And I think
Yeah.
you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family, but what he said was damning. And regardless of
So
me,
this
I
is
think
it.
you
This
have
is
to
his
clean it
shot.
up and talk
This
to
is
the
his
American
shot. Like
people.
this is
Maybe you
his
can do it
October
right now.
surprise shot. He needs to punch this or he
Vice
loses.
President
I
Biden,
think.
you may respond in 30
And I-
seconds. And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from
Yeah.
any foreign source ever in my life.
Bring up the
Yeah, and
Chinese
it's not a
bank
great
account.
This
October
president
surprise.
Paid 50 times the tax
Please.
in China.
There it
has a
is.
secret bank
There it
account
is.
with
Thomas
China.
Track returns.
Does business in China.
The American
And in
people.
fact, is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president. I have released all of my tax returns. 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot.
Drew, I feel like two
Russia's
thing can be
paying
true
you
at
a
once
lot.
here.
China's
Like,
paying you a lot.
Biden
And
hasn't
your
taken any
hotels and all
money,
your
but
businesses all
his
around the
kids have
country.
flourished
All
off of
around the
his
world.
course,
political
yes.
success,
That is, yes.
right?
Hunter
To a
Biden
new
is a
ga-
privileged kid who
a
used his
golf
dad's
course you
name
have
to gain
overseas.
benefits
So
in the world.
what's going
100%.
on here? Why don't
But
release
that
your
doesn't
tax
mean
return
that
and stop talking about
Joe
corruption?
Biden engaged in any
Trump, your
criminal
response.
First of
activity.
all, I called
No,
my
I agree with you.
accountants under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it, and it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more
He's been releasing
importantly
them
than
for
that,
4
people were
years.
saying
He's been under audit for
$750.
forever.
I
And
asked
you,
them
you
a
can
week
release them
ago,
under
I
audit.
said,
There's nothing against
"What did
like
I
this.
pay?"
It's not like
They
you're
said,
not
Right.
allowed to. You can
prepaid
release them under
tens
audit.
of millions
It's
of
fine.
dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years. Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid. Because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid.
I'm gonna have to do
Nobody told
research
me
on
that.
what prepaying your
Yeah,
taxes
I've never
means.
heard that
Excuse
either.
me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think
Well,
is a
let me
filing
fact
fee.
check-
But
let me look
just
into
tell
that,
you,
bro.
There's
I
a
prepaid
$750.
millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia.
So Drew,
You made $3.5 million.
so Drew, you
Joe,
can prepay
and
your
son
taxes.
gave you-
There's a
they
form
even
from the
have a
IRS.
statement that
So-
we have to
But it
give
would be
10% That part
it
checks
would
out.
it
to
would
the big
show
man.
up
You're the big
as
man,
like
I think.
you
Right.
still paid
I
it.
don't
It
know.
wouldn't be
Maybe
not.
you're not. But you're the big man, I think.
Exactly.
Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions
I have
about
to
all of this,
respond to
but
that.
I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant
Yes.
about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you?
She's doing a good job.
Deadline for when you're going to release
I
the
get
American
treated
people?
worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because
you
I have a
don't
lot
have
of
the time.
people in there, deep down in the IRS.
This is
they
it. This
treat
is
me
good.
horribly.
Joe should just
We
sit
made a
back, let
deal,
him
it was
debate
all
the
settled
moderator.
Until I decide to run for president.
Yep.
I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But
Everyone treats
I have
Trump
paid
badly. I'm sick of
millions
it,
and
man.
millions
It's like
of dollars.
everyone treats him
Everyone
badly.
treats
It's like
him
he's this.
badly. Everyone's
I paid
unfair
in
against
advance. It's
Trump.
called
He's the most.
prepaying your
He's a
taxes. I
fair
paid
man,
in
but everyone's
I
unfair
want to
against
ask
him.
you both about
It's the old
questions
saying. It's the old
regarding
saying.
your
If you walk
potential
around life
foreign
always
entanglements and
smelling
questions
shit,
that have
maybe
been
look under
raised,
your
to give
own
you both a
shoe.
chance to talk about this more broadly. Respond very quickly,
Yep.
and then I'll get to my question.
Occam's razor would,
Why did
would
he- he's
probably
been saying this for
recommend
4
that
years.
Trump's
Exactly.
actually the one who smells
Show
like
us.
shit, not
Right.
people around
Just
him.
show
Right.
us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to release your taxes. Nobody knows, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When
He's like, all right,
last
I'm
time
calm.
he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on. Come on, folks.
So
Quickly, President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you
Sure.
on this.
I was put through a
Which is probably
phony
true.
witch hunt
And
for
Sadly.
30 years.
Phony witch hunt.
It
Here we go.
started before I even got elected.
This is good
They
though.
spied
True,
on
boy.
my
This is good.
campaign.
This is good though
No
for
president should
Biden at
ever
least,
have to
because
go
it's
through
like
what I went through.
Yeah.
Let
this
me
is where
just
Trump
say
loses
this.
people, which is all these
Mueller
like unfair to
and
me,
18
witch
angry
hunt, blah blah blah.
Democrats
You
and
know,
FBI
they're not
agents all
talking
over the
about.
place
They're
spent
not talking
$48
about like
million.
issues, right? He's just
They went
defending
through
himself
everything I had,
from the world,
including
and
my
I think it
tax
looks bad
returns,
for Trump. I think
and
it's a
they
bad
found
thing. It's not going to win over
absolutely no
voters.
collusion and nothing wrong.
Right. No
Totally
one,
agree.
like,
People are sick
no
of him
one
on the
cares
job.
about
Guarantee if
impeachment
I
anymore.
spend
No one
$1
cares about the
million
Mueller
on you,
report.
Joe, I could find plenty
No.
wrong.
Not even
Because
Democrats.
the kind of
I don't.
things
Yeah,
that
it's
you've
over.
done and the kind of money
So the fact that he's
your
still
family
complaining
has
about it is
taken-
actually bad.
I mean, your brother made money in Iraq,
Let me-
millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a
He was the
Ukrainian
vice
energy
president of the
company
United
when
States
you
of
were vice
America.
president. In retrospect,
That probably
was
helps.
anything about
And a
those
senator for
relationships
decades.
inappropriate or unethical?
Yeah, like
Nothing
the
was
paycheck's
unethical.
nice.
Here's what the deal.
And you get speaking,
With regard to Ukraine,
like you get speaking deals.
we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the
Yep.
board, I later learned of a Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one
Which is true.
single
U.S.
solitary
and
thing
and
was
like
out of
Western
line.
Europe
Not a
policy was to
single
get
thing.
rid of that guy
Number
in
one.
Ukraine, that
Number two,
Attorney General.
the guy who
Right.
got in trouble in Ukraine was
considered
Yeah, and I'm
Right.
pretty sure
trying to
Lieutenant
bribe
Vindman
the
did a good job
Ukrainian government to say
clarifying
something
that
negative
for a
about
lot of
me,
Americans.
which they
Yeah.
would not do and did not do.
Totally
because it
agreed, man.
never,
I think it was about a
never,
year
ever
ago we
happened.
talked about this. I
My
thought it was
son
over.
has not made
Yeah.
money in terms of this thing about what are you talking about? China. I have not had the only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one.
That could be a
Nobody else has
lie.
made
I don't
money from
know
China.
enough.
Never
President
could
Trump,
deal with
let me
China. By the
ask
way-
my question to you.
But
and
could I
then
just
you'll-
one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president,
Are you
Burisma,
attacking
not the
his
best not the
family's
best
personal
reputation
Yeah,
in the
right.
issues,
world.
Again, it's like
I hear they paid him $183,000 a month.
yeah, it's like
Listen
Hunter
to this.
Biden's kind of a skeezy guy
183,
who used
and they
his
gave
name
him
to
a
get
$3 million
success, but like that's
upfront
not Joe
payment.
All
Biden.
right.
And he had no energy.
If we're
I'm
talking
gonna
about
let the Vice President
nepotism,
talk
And all
very
those
quickly,
emails-
then I'll get to a question to you.
Oh,
Very
yeah.
No basis for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong.
All
in
those
Ukraine.
emails showed me
Okay,
was that Joe
President
Biden's a
Trump,
good
this is
dad.
for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know
Amen.
that you don't have have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to,
Doing
which
business
is
with
the
China,
problem, man.
doing business
is
with
listed.
China is
The
different
bank
than having a
account was
Chinese
in
bank account.
2013.
Right. And
That's what
I'm
it was.
curious
It
to
was
hear,
open
though,
in
does
June.
Trump have
It was
actually access
closed
to
in
this bank account? Because if it's his
2015, I
company,
believe.
maybe
And
I
then
get it.
decided, because
I don't
was
know.
going to do,
I
I was
don't know.
thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people.
It
I
is
was
a big
thinking about it,
company.
and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for
Excuse me.
president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're
And you're the
sucking
president
up
of the
President
United
Trump, thank
States.
you. We do
Not
need to move
true.
on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden,
Like,
about
what else?
China.
Mic
Let's talk
drop,
about
man.
China
Like-
more broadly. There have, of course,
Yeah, I mean,
President
it's just
Trump
not
has said that they
supported.
should pay for not
Trump's
being
almost
fully
rhetoric is
transparent
that
in regards to
the nation
coronavirus.
sucks
If
and
you were
Biden's gonna make
president,
it
would
worse.
you make China pay? And please
like,
be
dude, you're the
specific.
president
What would
right
that
now.
look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are
Amen.
making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with
Good.
Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes his finger in the eye of all of our friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25% of the world's economy. We need to be having the rest of our friends with us saying to China, these are the rules. You
Yes.
play by them or
Yes.
you're going to pay the price
This
for
is
not
huge.
paying by them
This is the
economically.
huge
That's the way I will run it. And
monster
that's
in
what
the
we
corner
did
is-
in upholding
is-
steel tariffs and a range
We
of
need
other
to bring
things
the
when we
world
were
together
president and
to
vice
rein
president.
in China,
All right,
not
let's
the
talk
other
about
way
North
around.
Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to
Yes.
respond to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Very
feel like
quickly,
Trump's
let's move on.
rhetoric mixed with
North
China's
Korea.
foreplay has almost created a bipolar world which we can't sustain. Like, we need to find a way to piece that together. Like, we don't have to love
There's
China.
a very strong email talking about your
I'm with
family
you, man.
wanting to
Like,
make
I agree with
$10
Trump's
million
rhetoric
a
on
year
China.
for
Disagree with his
introductions.
actions.
President Trump, on China policy, though, what
No, but wait a
specifically are
minute.
you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You've said you're going
First
to
of
make
all,
them pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave
New
$28 billion.
sanctions? New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our
They're not.
farmers.
The U.S. is
Taxpayers'
losing.
money.
China's economy's back.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money didn't
No,
come
no,
from
yeah,
China.
you know who the taxpayer is? It's called China. China
Not
paid
true.
$28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it? to?
Amen.
They
That's a
devalued
strong
their
one.
currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Okay.
And now we have a steel
Okay,
industry.
Vice President Biden, your response, please.
My response is, look,
Kind of
this isn't
incorrect.
about, there's a reason why he's bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason for it. He doesn't want to talk about the substance
No, there's
issues.
nothing from
It's not about
malarkey.
his family and my family.
Aw.
It's about your family.
Couldn't you
And
just
your
call it
family's
bullshit?
hurting
I'm sick of
badly.
hearing the word
If you're
malarkey.
making less than,
Yeah, right.
if you're a middle-class family, you're getting hurt badly right now. You're sitting at the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so. Or are we going to be able to pay the mortgage? Or who's going to tell her she can't go back to community college? They're the decisions you're making in the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont. They're in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want
That is a
to talk
typical
about
statement.
North Korea.
Excuse me, just
I do
for
want
one
to turn
second.
to 10 seconds, Mr. President. 10 seconds.
Typical political statement.
I like
Let's
that.
get off this
That's some
China
blue
thing,
collar
and then he
bullshit
looks,
right
the
there, man,
family,
and I
around
love
the
it.
table, everything. Just a typical
playing dirty with
politician
Trump.
when I see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
That's why I got elected.
Let's talk
Let's
about-
get off the subject of China. Let's talk
That's
around
good.
sitting around the table.
All right.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President
I don't know
Trump
if that
has met with
works.
North
I don't know
Korean
if that
leader
works
Kim
what Trump
Jong-un
just
3
tried.
times. You've talked about your
No, I
beautiful
think
letters
it
with him.
failed.
You've
It get-
touted the fact
there's a
that
lot
there
of
hasn't been a
questions it
war
creates.
or a long-range
Yeah, like people
missile test,
are
and
actually
yet North
upset
Korea
about,
recently rolled out its biggest ever
their kids are not in
intercontinental
college right
ballistic
now and they
missile
don't know what their
and
job is.
continues to
People are
develop
upset
its
at the
nuclear
table.
arsenal. Do you
Yeah?
see that
I
as a
don't know.
betrayal of the
I
relationship
don't know.
we forged?
I actually
Just
think
30
Joe
seconds
Biden's
here
holding
because
his
we need
own
to get
right
on to
now.
the next.
So when I met with
Me too.
Barack Obama,
Me too.
we sat in the White House.
And
Right at the
weirdly,
beginning,
man, I
had a
actually
great
think Trump's doing
conversation,
pretty
supposed to be
well.
15 minutes, and it was well over
At least
an
in
hour.
terms of, like,
He said the biggest problem we have with
speaking.
Is North Korea. He indicated we will be
We'll have
in
to
a
see
war
how
with
that
North
Hunter
Korea.
Biden thing goes,
Guess
because
what?
that's
It
it.
would be
That's
a
the
nuclear
October
war, and he does
surprise.
have plenty
If
of
it doesn't
nuclear
poll well,
Yeah, it
then
is.
I don't know if it'll do
In the
much.
meantime, I have a very good relationship with him. Different
I
kind
feel
of a guy,
like
but he
this
probably
October
thinks the
surprise is
same
like
thing
if you're
about me.
expecting
We have a
tiramisu for
different
your
kind of a
birthday dinner and
relationship.
they bring
We
you
have
a
very
scoop
good
of soft
relationship,
serve
and
instead.
there's no
Well, it's
war.
kind of like we already heard
And
it, like you said, like with
about
the
2 months ago,
impeachment
he
and the
broke
Comey
into
and like
a certain area. They said, "Oh, there's
that
going to be
Rudy
trouble." I said,
Giuliani
"No,
era.
they're not."
We kind
because
of
he's
already
not gonna
heard
do
some of
that.
it, and
I
so
was
it's
right.
not like it's
Look,
Yeah.
instead
super
of being
new.
in a
And I
war
think
where
there
millions
is
of people's soul, is 25 miles
fatigue.
away.
I think there's scandal fatigue on all
Millions and
sides, so
millions,
people just don't
32
care
million
anymore.
people,
They've
and so
already voted. They
millions
already
of
think they're
people
going to
would
vote
Totally.
be
one way or
dead right now.
another. They just don't
President
give a
Trump,
shit.
that's 30
And I have a
seconds.
good
Thank you.
relationship.
Vice President Biden, to you.
Totally
North
agreed,
Korea
yeah.
conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat right
Because I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration, when I went to China, that they said, "Why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you
Amen.
moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea?" I said, "Because North Korea is a problem, and we're going to continue to do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue." What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy, who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow
He's
up
talking about
with
North
you,
Korea
Vice
for you, right? I just
President
want to make
Biden.
sure
You
it's the
said
same
you
spot.
wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without
Yes.
preconditions. Are there
Okay.
any conditions under which you would meet with him?
On the condition
Yeah, we
that
were
he
a little
would
bit
agree that
behind
he would
earlier,
be
but I think we're actually
drawing
on the
down
same
his
one now.
Nuclear
Okay.
capacity.
If we ever-
to get
we can
the
also
Korean
both
Peninsula should be a
refresh.
nuclear-free zone.
All right, let's move on to.
We should do that
American
right now,
families.
actually.
Let's just do it.
Very
Let's just
quickly,
do it. I'm
10
gonna
seconds,
refresh.
They
President.
tried.
All right. Same.
I got an ad.
Yeah.
Here.
Same.
Damn, 1.4 million on this one.
Respond
1.4
to that
million.
before we
Wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know
that's
what?
okay. You know
And
what?
good.
North
I think
Korea,
we're fresh
we're
now.
not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good relationship
President,
with
we have
leaders
to
of
move
other
on.
The
countries.
flaws
We
of
have
the
a lot
internet
We have
age.
a lot of questions to get
Yes,
to.
not
Your
a
That's like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because
That didn't
President
land
Bit
Obama
of a
quite
stretch.
right.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
they
talk
didn't
about
land quite right.
No.
denuclearization. We're not going to
Yeah, I'm not-
legitimize you, and we're going
not
to
sure how I feel
continue to
about that
put
one.
stronger and stronger sanctions on you.
There's no
That's
Hitler
why he
right
wouldn't
now.
meet with us.
All right, let's
I'm gonna grab
move on. Let's move
another
on and
glass
talk
of
about
water.
American
He left
families.
me a mess.
Because I need it.
President
This is
Trump?
crazy.
Okay, we
They
Enjoy.
left me a mess. North
It's actually
Korea
good,
was a
man.
mess.
We
And
need
in
to
fact,
move
if
on
you
so that
remember
we
the
can get
first
to
2
all
or
of our
3
other
months,
questions tonight,
there was a
President
very
Trump.
dangerous
Okay, my,
period in my
second
first
half
3 months
predictions
before
here, we're
we
about
sort of worked
halftime.
things out
We're-
a little
yeah.
bit.
Okay.
There was a very they left us a
Trump's going to start
mess,
going
and
off the
Obama
rails
would be,
soon
I
because he's
think,
losing
the
this
first
debate,
to say
but
it
he's
was the
keeping his
single
own.
biggest
So here we
problem
go.
he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy. One of
Trump's
the
getting
issues
fired up,
that's
and
most
so is
important
Biden. Let's
to
see how
them
this goes.
Is healthcare, as you both know. Today there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and healthcare is at the center
Mm-hmm.
of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million Americans get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible.
This one always
Through
fascinates
the
me because Trump's done
legislature,
nothing
I
for healthcare
terminated the
except
individual
talk about how he
mandate.
has
That is
options.
the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it, the individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good. But then I made a decision: run it as well as
I understand
you
the
can to make
argument,
people
but
great
without a
people.
mandate,
Run
it's
it
never
as well as
possible.
you can. I could have gone the
You
other
need to
route and made everybody
require
very
citizens
unhappy.
to pay into
They
the
ran
system.
Premiums
If you
are
don't,
down,
it's
everything's
a
down.
moot
Here's
point.
the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will
White
have
Claw
to
and
run
Fleek.
it, and we'll have Obamacare.
Round two, here
but
we
it'll
go.
be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate Obamacare, come up with a brand
Yeah, but
new,
what's your
beautiful
solution, man?
healthcare. The Democrats will do it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time. And I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But
Yeah, but Obama did the best thing he could at the time, which was forcing
with pre-existing conditions.
citizens to have an individual mandate, because it.
180 million people out there
I'm so
that
mad.
have great private health care, far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care.
Yeah, but those are people that can
have been
afford it.
Successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180
Yes, these are
million
rich
plans,
voters. These are rich
180 million
voters.
people,
What about the
families.
individual mandate in
Under
healthcare for
what
poor
he
people?
wants to
You
do, which
never
will
have provided an
basically
option.
be socialized medicine.
What's
He
up,
won't
I'm
even
back.
have a choice. They want to terminate
Drew, so he's talking about
180
how the
million
individual
plans.
mandate
We
is
have
the
done
worst
an
thing for
incredible
healthcare,
job on
and how
healthcare,
he has a
and
beautiful
we're going to do
option.
even better.
And I'm just curious, like the
Okay,
individual
Mr.
mandate
President
is
Biden,
necessary
yes, this
for
is for you. Your
healthcare. It
healthcare plan
forces
calls for
even
building
healthy
on
people to
Obamacare.
pay
So
into
my
it, so the
question is, what
system's
is your
better.
plan
Yes.
if the law is ruled
Without it, it doesn't
unconstitutional
work.
by
And
the
he keeps
Supreme
talking
Court?
about
You
this
have 2
shiny
minutes
object.
uninterrupted.
And I'm
What I'm
curious
going
where
to
this
do
shiny
is
object
pass
is. Do I need
Obamacare with a
binoculars?
public option.
Right. What is the
Become
plan? What is the
Biden-care. A public
replacement?
option is an option that says that
I mean,
if
the
you, in
individ- yeah.
fact, do
After
not
a
have the
pandemic, I feel like
wherewithal to
people
be-
should
if
understand the
you
individual
qualify for Medicaid
mandate a
and
little
you
bit
do
more,
not have
right?
the
Because even if you're
wherewithal,
healthy at one
then
point,
your state to
maybe
get
you're not in a
Medicaid,
few
you're
months.
automatically enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies. That's what's going to happen.
Exactly.
Secondly, we're going to make sure we
And here's
reduce
Biden's
the premiums
response.
and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now, by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to
Uh-oh,
eliminate
Biden's
private
getting
insurance,
sleepy,
the
man.
reason why I had such
Yeah,
a
he's
fight
slowing.
with 20 candidates
It's
for
that
the
thing where he's
nomination
a
was
little too much
I
air, he
support
he
private
starts to
insurance.
stumble.
That's why I didn't. Not one single person. with
While you
private
were gone,
insurance would
my
lose
prediction
their
is that
insurance
Trump
under
gets
my
fiery
plan, nor
during the
did
second
they
half of
under
this debate,
Obamacare.
and
They
Biden
did not lose
maybe
their insurance.
not
Unless
so
they
much.
chose, they wanted to go to something else.
shows lots of
Lastly,
stamina,
we're going
maybe.
to make sure we're in a situation that
What do we got, like 40 minutes
actually
left?
protect pre-existing. There's
I
no
think so,
way you
yeah.
can protect pre-existing conditions. None, zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting since 17, 18, 19, and 20. The fact, I still have a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious.
That's a good line.
The fact is that he's already cost the American people, because of his terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance.
That was a
And
great
he wants
point
to
by
take away
Biden, that
22
maybe we'll
million
find
more
out about
people
the
having
infrastructure plan
Obamacare
the same
and
time as
over
the healthcare
110
plan.
Yeah, for real.
million
'Cause they're all
people with
BS.
pre-existing conditions,
I remember
and
when
all the
Trump got
people from
elected,
COVID are gonna have
that was one of the
pre-existing
things I was
conditions.
looking
What are
forward
they
to.
gonna
I
do?
was like,
I
well,
have a
I do
follow-up
look
for you,
forward to
Vice
his
President Biden. It
infrastructure
relates to
plan,
something
which he
that
never
President
did.
Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting
Same. I
socialized
thought he would do a
medicine.
good job.
What do you say to people
He was like, "Oh, I'm a
who have
builder."
concerns that your health care
He didn't even
plan,
really
which
build a wall.
includes a
Yeah.
government insurance option, takes the
Nope.
country one step closer
Couldn't even build
to
a
a healthcare
fence.
system run entirely by
Right.
the government? What's
I
your
say
response
it's
to them?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, we're the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think health care is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care.
Good point.
And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions, as well as a whole range of other people who, in fact, are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to.
Drew, I'm just going to say this because it's on my mind. Last week on our voting episode, you were talking about the social contract and how there are certain liberties you have to give up for the better of a democracy and the health of a democracy. And I think something like paying for health care and the individual mandate is one of those.
We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate. And that's
yeah,
what I do.
I mean, again, like it's amazing that we don't when you look at the amount of countries that do.
He was now there as vice president for 8
And
years.
again, I'm not saying
Yeah,
perfect,
it's crazy.
but, like, it's a shift in paradigm of thinking of like it's a
just
human right.
a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago.
I agree.
He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president. I mean,
This is such a weird angle
more
that they're
liberal
trying.
Than Bernie Sanders.
Yes, and it's not working,
Bernie
at
I
least
don't
in
think
my
it's
eyes.
working. Yeah, I don't think it's working. They're trying to paint Kamala as like this like Bernie socialist demon that's going to take over.
We're going to stop fracking. We're going
I
to
don't
stop
think
She's
it's
not.
Then he
working.
goes to
Yeah.
Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination where he got very lucky.
She's honestly an establishment DNC. She's like closer to Hillary than Bernie.
She's a cop. Yeah.
And you never asked that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way.
But somebody should ask the question.
You can ask
He goes for a year. There will be
We
no
have
fracking. There
we
will
do
be
have
no
a number of
control.
we
Oh,
have
that's
a number
nice.
of topics we're going to get to.
That's a big question.
We're going to get to
It's the same thing with socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people deserve to have affordable health care, period. Period, period, period. And the Biden care proposal will, in fact, provide for that affordable health care.
Amen.
Lower premiums. What we're going to do is going to cost some money. It's going to cost over $750 billion over 10 years to do it. And they're going to have lower premiums. You can buy into the better plans, the cheaper plans, lower your premiums, deal with unexpected billing, and have your drug prices drop significantly. He keeps talking about it. He hasn't done
my
a
mind is
thing
corked.
for anybody on health care. Not a thing.
Kristen, when he
Very
says,
quickly, then I'm gonna talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine.
Salud,
and
mi
when
tío.
and healthcare. When he talks about a public
I would
option,
salute, but
he's
my
talking
wine
about
is-
destroying your
I think-
Medicare.
I think the-
totally
this
destroying
one is bad.
and destroying your Social Security.
I
and
opened
this
up a
whole
new bottle.
country will come down.
It's
You know,
corked.
Bernie Sanders tried it. In his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay,
It
let's
was
let Vice President
impossible
Biden
to work.
respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's
Biden,
a very
your
confused
response.
guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe
Trump likes to
Biden.
use words like
I beat
liberal,
all
blue.
those other people
Like it's
because
always
I
just
disagreed with them.
simplifying
Joe
every
Biden he's
issue.
running against. And the idea
It's good for
that we're in a
stupid people, I
situation
think,
that they're
who
gonna destroy
can't really-
Medicare, this is the guy that the actuary at Medicare said, if in fact,
And I'm not
at
calling
Social
anyone stupid,
Security,
by the way.
if in fact
I'm just
he
saying.
continues to withhold his plan to withhold the tax on Social Security, Social Security will be bankrupt by 2023 with no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare.
Jesus.
So I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on.
He tried to get
10
rid of. He
seconds, Mr.
tried to hurt
President, and then I
Social
have to go to
Security
another
years
question.
ago. Years ago. Go
Biden's
back and
like,
look
I'm
at the
receiving
records.
those
He tried
right
to
now.
hurt
I know them
I
well.
think Biden's doing.
All right,
In my,
let's
I don't know,
move
maybe.
on. I'm gonna move on.
I think Biden's doing a lot better
President,
this
let's move
debate
on
than
to
the
next
first one.
question,
They said
or
the
else
stock
we're not
market
gonna have
will
Me too.
time to talk
And
about
I
it.
even-
actually would say I think both
If
of
he's
them are.
elected, the stock
I don't
market
know,
will
man.
crash.
I
Okay,
don't
let's
know.
move on to the
Analysts are
next
saying that.
question
No matter-
very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is booming.
Maybe
is
we'll
his
do
only
5 minutes of
measure
our
what's
thoughts
happening.
Yeah,
after this.
yeah,
And we
yeah,
can
for
kind
sure.
of
Scranton and
For
Claremont,
sure.
that
recap
people don't
that.
live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this
great,
country made,
great
according
point.
to the Wall Street, $700
The people don't live
billion
off
more
the stock
dollars.
market.
$700 billion more dollars, because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What happens to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to
Kristen,
move on, gentlemen.
401ks are through the roof.
We're gonna
People's
move on.
stock are through the roof.
All
And
right.
he doesn't come from Scranton. That's like he lived there for a short period of
gonna-
time before
okay,
he even knew
we're
it.
gonna move on
and
to
he
the
left.
next
And
question.
the people of
I'll be back.
Let me move
Off
on
to get a
my
little
next
water.
question, gentlemen.
Sounds
As
good.
of tonight, more than 12
I
million
don't
people
Peace.
know.
are out of work.
It looks like
and
Trump
as of
is
tonight, 8 million
throwing
more
darts at
Americans
the
have fallen into
dartboards. see what
poverty,
sticks, but
and
I
more
don't know, it's
families are
still too
going
late in
hungry
the,
every day.
campaign to be
Those hit
doing shit
hardest
like
are
that.
women and people of color.
Great
They
point.
see Washington
Oh, yeah,
fighting
you go
over
ahead.
a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30 seconds here.
Because Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House because of her. Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some victories on a date called November 3rd. Nancy Pelosi does not want to approve it. We are ready, willing, and able to do something. Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President.
You know, the Republican leader in the United States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
Let me follow up with you, Vice President
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because
Republicans
let me
will
ask
pass
Vice President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Well, I have, and they have pushed it. Look, they passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer. This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there. And look at what's happening. When I was in charge of the Recovery Act with $800 billion, I was able to get $145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with
Bill
these
that was
guys?
passed in the
Hello,
House was
Ola.
a bailout
Hey.
of badly run,
Biden's getting
high-crime
mad, dude. He's getting like,
Democrat,
he's getting
all-right
upset.
Finally.
Democrats, cities
know,
and
right?
states. It was a way of getting a lot of money.
I think you and I
billions
talked about it
billions of
over a
dollars
year
to these
ago.
kids.
Is Biden
It
might
was
be one of the
also a
only
way of
people who
getting
could
a
maybe
lot of
take
money
on Trumpism.
from our people's pockets
real.
to people
We'll
that
see.
come
I mean,
into our
it's
country
looking like the
illegally.
poll, like, again,
We were going to
polling
take
can
care
be
of
wrong, of
everything
course,
for them.
but
And what that does, and I'd love to
he's
do that, I'd love
in
to
a
help
good
him, but
position
what that
as a-
does,
as a
everybody
challenger.
all
He's
over
in
the
a good
world will start
position.
pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a
Agreed.
way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout
Who is
for
them?
badly run Democrat
curious.
cities and states.
All right,
By
I
the way,
want
if
to.
I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue states. What I see is American, United States. And folks, every single state out there finds themselves in trouble. They're going to start laying off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
Trump
wanna
just
talk about
nodded
the
too.
minimum
He's
wage
like, yeah,
then.
I'm in
Mr.
agreement
Vice
with
President,
Biden there.
We are talking a lot about struggling small businesses
Yes.
and business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum
I
wage.
do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to bail them out too. We should be bailing them out now, those small businesses. You got 1 in 6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back.
That's a
They
good point.
passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to
Excuse me, one
immigration,
thing very
but I
quickly.
want
He
to
said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small
Yeah,
businesses
Drew, I'm
by
looking at our
raising the
bingo
minimum
card. If
wage.
we
That's
get
not
court
happening.
packing and shut
I
up,
think it should be a state
looking
option.
good.
Alabama.
Yeah,
is
we
different
also
from
Which I
need-
think
New York.
both-
New York is different from
We
Vermont.
just, I think we
Every
need
state is
refusal to
different.
answer a
It should be a
question and we
state
get a
option.
bingo.
You said very
We have to
recently.
help. It's very important. We have to
Oh,
help our
shit,
small
you're right.
businesses.
You
The
said-
top
How are you
middle.
helping your small businesses when
Yeah.
you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said very
Not true,
recently you would
by the way.
consider raising the federal minimum
it.
wage to $15
Say
an
it.
hour. You said recently you would consider raising the federal minimum wage to
What I
$15 an hour.
really
Is that
like,
still the case?
and I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really
administration?
like, in a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses
Trump,
out of
it's a
business.
shoe-in, man. I'm
It should
telling
be
you
a
as
state
a
option.
enemy.
Look, I live
It's
in
a
different
shoe-in.
places. I know different places.
It's gonna
They're
have
all
to happen
different.
eventually.
Some
It's still-
places,
it keeps
Yeah.
being
$15 is not
7.25.
so bad. In other places,
Cannot.
other states, $15 would
Okay,
be
President
ruined.
Trump, thank you. Quick
No
response,
one
Vice
should
President
work
Biden.
2 jobs, 1 job, be below poverty.
Yeah,
People
but
are
let's
making
start
6,
there,
7, 8
man.
bucks an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there is no evidence that when you raise the minimum wage, businesses go out of business. That is simply not true.
We're going to talk
No
about
soul.
immigration. We're going to talk about immigration now, gentlemen, and we're going to talk about families within this context. Mr. President, your administration separated children
half
from
hour
their
left.
parents at the border, at least 4,000 kids. You've since reversed your zero-tolerance policy, but the United States can't locate the parents of more than 500
Wasn't there a
children.
new report
So
where
how
a
will
lot
these
of,
families
like, they
ever
couldn't
be
find the
reunited?
parents for a lot of those
That's what
kids?
she's saying right now.
Here
545
by
kids.
coyotes
They couldn't
and
find the
lots
parents
of
for it
bad
at all.
people, cartels.
Jesus.
And they're brought here, and they used to use them to get
See that?
into
He just
our
said
country.
cartels. He just
We
said
now
cartels
have
with no
as strong a
context.
border as we've ever had.
Yeah,
We're
that's
over
not
400
particularly
miles of
accurate.
brand new
The
wall.
question was about
You see the
toddlers without
numbers, and we let
parents, and
people
he
in,
said
but they have to
cartels,
come
the
in
third
legally,
word.
and they come in through
But
merit.
how will you reunite
Yeah, there's
these
multiple
kids with their
facets to
families,
this, but
Mr.
They
President?
built cages.
it's not
You know,
about
they
that
used to say, I built
at
the
this
cages.
point. Obviously,
And
there
then
is
they had
illegal
a picture
immigration
in a
and
certain
Of course, but like
drug
newspaper.
cartels,
see,
but
There was
he's
a picture
playing
of
off
these
fear. Like
horrible
when you're asking, like, hey,
cages,
like what
and they
did
said,
the,
"Look
you know,
at
what
these
did your
cages.
administration do with these
President
children's
Trump built them."
parents?
And then it was
And then,
determined
or the
they were
children,
built.
and then they say,
In
oh,
2014,
cartels are coming.
that was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan
yeah,
to
it's a
reunite the
moot
kids?
point
Yes,
in my
we're working
opinion,
on
at
it
least in
very-
this part of
We're
it.
trying very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without the parents. They come over through cartels and through coyotes and through gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this
Really?
conversation. Quick response and then another question to you.
These 500 plus
It's not
kids
true, though.
came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with. Big, real tough. We're really strong. And guess what? They cannot, it's not coyotes didn't bring them over. Their parents were with them. They got separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Let me ask you a follow-up
Kristen,
question.
they did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
They
to
did
that?
it.
And
We
international
changed it.
law.
Not
They built the
separate
cages.
they-
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's talk about what
Who
we're
built the
talking
cages,
about. Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about.
They
What
did it. We
happened?
changed the
Most
policy.
likely
Jesus
under,
Christ.
most likely
Their
under
kids
Bush,
were ripped
by
from
the
their
way.
arms and
ICE
separated.
Yeah.
Major.
And now they
Like, sadly,
cannot
let's be
find over
honest, is that Bush, Obama,
500
and Trump
sets
were
of
all
those
pretty
parents,
bad with
and those
this.
kids are alone.
Well, ICE is just kind
Nowhere
of
to
out of
go.
control from what they
Nowhere
originally
to go.
started as.
It's criminal.
Yep.
It's criminal.
Let me
This
ask
is
you
evidence
about
of
Say
that.
this,
immigration.
they
10
went down, we
seconds
brought
and then I need to
reporters, everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some
and
of them
have gotten
haven't been
such good-
reunited
But
with
just
their
ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your immigration policy, Mr. Vice President. The Obama administration did fail to deliver immigration reform, which had been a key promise.
It is
during
a
the
sad
administration.
reality,
It
I
also
think,
presided
there.
over record deportations as well
That
as family
it's-
detentions at the border.
but it's not
before
Obama's fault
changing
either.
course. So why should voters
Like
trust
you said,
with
it's
an immigration
ICE
overhaul
and
now?
the
Because
I mean,
we made a mistake.
like
We
the
made too, it took too
Yeah,
long.
but they were
to
not
get it
separating
right.
kids from
Took too
families
long to
during
get
the
it right.
Obama administration.
I'll be president of the United States, not
Right.
vice president of the United States.
Like, so his
And the
idea of
fact
like,
Yeah, you're
who built
right.
the
I've made it
cages
very
is like,
clear.
dude, you decided
Within
to.
100 days, I'm going to
Move
send to the
kids.
United States
Yeah.
Congress
Stephen
a
Miller did
pathway
that,
to
actually.
citizenship for over
Yeah.
11 million
It's fitting.
undocumented people. And all of those so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea that they are being sent home by this guy and they want to do that is they've gone to a country they've never seen before. I can imagine you're 5 years old, your parents are taking you across the Rio Grande River and it's illegal. And you say, oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you. They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
President
Kristen,
Trump,
he
your
had
reaction.
8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've changed without having a
Yeah, they did.
specific. We got rid of catch and release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president.
Catch and
was-
release
He
sounds like
did
fishermen, man.
nothing
Like, they need to
except
change the
build
rhetoric.
cages.
I'm
These are
sick of
people,
this,
man.
like,
These are
children
fucking
in.
people.
yeah.
Vice President Biden, your
Also,
response.
Biden
The catch
interrupted.
and
He said
release,
we
you know what he's
did,
talking about
but it's
there?
not his turn.
If
So
in
he's
fact you
interrupted.
had a family
So we.
came across
We're
and they were
close,
arrested,
man.
they in fact were given a date
Hell
to
yeah.
show up for their hearing. They were released, and guess what? They showed up.
Honestly, man, just for the record on this, like, I don't think the Obama administration or the Trump administration have done well with immigration. And like, it's come to this because of that, probably.
No, yeah,
That's
no.
never happened before in America. You come to the
we
United
need,
States
like,
and you
I
make
think
your
we do need
case
a
that I
comprehensive
seek
immigration
asylum
reform.
based
Like,
on
our
the
system
following,
is like
on the following
Yeah.
premise,
jammed up.
why I
It's not
deserve it under
efficient.
American
It
law.
leads to things like
They're sitting in
families getting
squalor on the
separated.
other
We need
side
to
of the
figure it out,
river.
and it needs to be better. It's
President
not
Trump,
fine
your
the way it
agree.
is.
seconds, and then we'll move
It
on.
just shows that he has
Definitely
no understanding of immigration or the laws. Catch and release is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist would come in,
There
a
it
very
is.
bad person would come in. We would take their name. We have to release them into our country. And then you say they come back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need Perry Mason. We're going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest
Yes, they
IQ,
do.
Oh
might come
my
back.
God! He
Let's
said
give
only
Vice
the
Yes, they
President
stupid
Biden
do.
to
ones.
respond, and then we're going to
He
move
said
on to
only the
next
stupid
section.
Ooh,
ones
boy.
come back.
Vice President
Wow.
Biden, your response.
No, the law
Oh,
is
boy.
telling you is simply
That's-
not true.
Well, check it out.
It's
They
a
don't come back.
Check it out.
bad take.
All right, let's
A,
move
they
on.
don't have to
come
worry about
back,
it.
and
They
B, the
terminated
smarter
it, so we
ones
don't
are
have to
probably the
worry
ones
about
that
it.
come
Let's move
back,
on to the
honestly.
next
If you really think
section.
about it, the people who
Really
now
bad.
know how to
I'm
use
just
this.
saying, I
On
hate to
God's
say
name,
it,
they're
the
gonna
low
be and
IQ.
lost their parents.
Go ahead.
All right. Let's talk
Yeah,
about
not a
our
good
next
vibe.
section,
Trump
which
just comes
is
off like a
race
dick,
in
man.
America. And I want to
He
talk about
does.
the way black and brown Americans experience race in this country.
Oh, boy,
Part
Drew,
of that
here we go.
experience is something
get ready for
called the
bingo.
talk. It happens regardless of class and income.
Is there double
Parents who
bingo?
feel
Like
they have
double
no
Jeopardy?
choice but to
Right.
prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has her graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90%
course it's
African
Pennsylvania.
American, was to learn more about what was going on. What I didn't, I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street, making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, just yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. Well, guess what? We have never, ever lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says, that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity, better education, better health care, better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses. All the things we can do, and I've laid out a clear plan as to how to do those things. Just to give people
Well, it's a nuanced
shot.
conversation,
It's about
but I understand where
accumulating the ability
Joe's
to have
going.
wealth as well as
I
it
do.
is to be free from violence.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question. I would like you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
Yes, I do. And again, he's been in government 47 years. He never did a thing except in 1994 when he did such harm to the black community.
Who cares?
And they were called, and he called them super predators. And
Drew,
he
if your
said
cancer
that. He
doctor
said
was
it's
in
super
medicine for
predators,
47 years,
and they
isn't that a
could
good
never
thing?
live that down.
Just curious.
1994,
Yeah,
crime bill, the super predators.
Again, it's like
Nobody has
Trump is
done
not
more for
talking-
the black community than Donald Trump. And if you look,
It's a weird
with
third
the
person.
exception
Joe
of
Biden's really good at
Abraham
like
Lincoln,
talking
possible
to the
exception,
American
but the
people, or at least
exception
it
of
seems like
Abraham
that.
Lincoln,
Whereas Trump
nobody
Right.
always
has
seems like
done
he's talking
what
to the
I've done.
moderator or
Criminal
talking to Joe.
justice reform. Obama and
It's a really
Joe
astute
didn't do it.
analysis, actually.
I don't
It's
even
a really
think
good point.
they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted
Damn,
to do
yeah,
it,
it's a really
but
good
if
point.
you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody
Damn.
knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs.
He is a
People
great
don't
senator.
talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I saved historically black
Oh, he got
colleges and
muted.
universities.
Okay, and we're going to talk about
he
both
got
of
muted
your
for a
records,
second.
but your response to that, Vice
My
President.
response to that
Interesting.
is I never,
He got cut
ever
off.
said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it. Not enough people. He talked about marauding gangs, young gangs, and the people who are going to maraud our cities. This is a guy who in the Central Park five innocent black kids, he continued to push for making sure that they got the death penalty. None of them were guilty of the crimes they were suggested. Look, and talk about granted, he did in fact let 20 people, he commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where the federal prison system was reduced by 38,000 people under our administration. And one of these things we should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law. That's why I'm offering $20 billion to states to change their state laws to eliminate minimum mandatories.
Agreed, yeah.
And set up drug courts. No one should be going to jail because they have a drug problem. They should be going to rehabilitation,
See,
not to
Drew,
jail.
here, what
We
I
should
like is that
fundamentally
Trump
change
talks
the
about how
system, and that's what I'm gonna
systematic
do.
racism is
Why
over.
didn't he do it 4 years ago?
Biden
Why
tries
didn't
to
you
make
do
it a more
that 4
nuanced
years ago,
conversation.
even less than that? Why didn't you
I
do it?
am
You were
not-
vice president. You keep talking about all these things you're going to do.
'Cause it's
and you're gonna do
complicated,
this.
man.
Yeah,
But
that's
you
the
were
thing. He
there
keeps
just a
saying like
short
as if
time
like you
ago,
can just become
and
president
you
and
guys
solve
did
all the world's
nothing.
problems,
You know, Joe,
and they
I
didn't do
ran
nothing.
because of you. I ran because of
Right.
Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right,
No,
Vice
it's because you have an
President Biden, your
ego and
response to
Obama
that,
shit
and then
on
I
you
do have
on
some
the
questions for
correspondence
both of
dinner
you.
Well, I
and
tell
you
you
couldn't
what,
handle it.
I hope he does look at me because what's happening here is you know who I am. You know who he is. You know his character. You know my character. You know our reputations for honor and telling the truth. I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some follow-up.
Excuse me.
Please respond. And then we'll
Excuse
have
me.
follow-up
If this is true
questions.
about
Excuse
Russia,
me.
Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
There, he's trying to
So
bring back
don't
the
give me
October
the stuff
surprise.
about how
He's
you're
trying to
this
bring it back.
innocent baby. Joe,
Which is more
they're
like a
calling
soft-serve
you a corrupt
dessert at
politician.
Ben and
Nobody-
Jerry's.
President Trump, I want to stay on the issue of race. We're talking about the issue.
Laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race
Well,
right now,
Trump,
and I
you're a
do
corrupt
wanna stay
a-hole.
on the
Laptop
issue of
from
race.
hell.
President Trump,
And I
you've
have to
just
respond
I
to
don't-
that
Please,
because look,
very
there
quickly.
are
No, he
50
shouldn't.
former
Oh, God.
national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me
Yeah, I
of
agree with you, man.
is a
He
Russian
shouldn't.
plant. They have said that this has all the
And he's right- and he's right, though. He
former
should
heads
let
of
it
the
go, but he's
CIA,
right.
Both parties
Maybe this
say
is
what
good,
he's
though.
saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax?
And
You
that's
got it.
exactly what.
Is this
that's
where you're
Brew
going?
boy, Rudy
This is where
Giuliani.
he's going. The laptop
Sounds like a dish.
is
It-
Gentlemen, I want to stay on the
Macaroni
issue of
grill.
race,
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President,
again with Russia.
We're going to continue on the issue of race. Mr. President,
believe
you've
that one.
described the Black Lives Matter movement.
Ooh,
as a
boy, Drew, it's
symbol of
going.
Oh,
hate.
here we go.
You've shared a
There's-
video
so
of a
there's
man
what?
chanting
Biden uses
white
BLM
power
as a
to
buzzword-
millions of your
buzzword.
supporters. You've said that
QAnon.
black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights
Oh,
should be
God.
fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching
Trump
down the
always
street.
uses this.
And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as
Shouldn't
my
the president know
relationships with
that
all people,
Black
I
Lives
think I have
Matter are
great
gonna be mean to
relationships
him?
with all people.
And
I
shouldn't he
am
have the,
least
skin to deal with
racist
it?
person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are concerned by that rhetoric?
I don't know.
and by
I mean, I
the
don't know
videos?
what to say. I got criminal justice reform done, and prison reform, and opportunity zones. I
The
took care
least
of black
racist.
colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad, because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark. But I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the
That's such a
least
weird way to
racist
defend
person
yourself.
in this room.
Okay, Vice
I
President
know.
Biden, let me ask you very quickly, and then I have a follow-up question for
If
you.
you-
Drew, it's like if I was at a
Abraham
bar
Lincoln here is one of the most
with a bunch
racist
of
presidents we've had
alcoholics,
in modern
and
history.
one of them says,
He
"We're all
pours fuel
drinking,"
on every
and
single
I may have a problem, but I'm the
racist
least
fire.
alcoholic.
Yeah,
amongst
yeah,
all of us.
exactly. Everyone's
Started
like, "Yo,
off his
man, like
campaign
we
coming
might
down
think
the
you have a
escalator
drinking
saying
problem.
he's
I'm
getting
the
rid of those
least
Mexican rapists.
likely to have a
He's
drinker.
banned
Like I'm the
Muslims
least
because of the
creepy.
Muslims.
Like that's
He
not
has
a.
moved around and made
what's
everything
it is like
worse
she doth
across the
protest
board.
too much.
He says about the poor
Yep,
boys.
exactly.
Last time we were on stage here, he said, "I told him to stand down and stand ready." Come on. This guy is a
The
dog
poor
whistle about
boys?
as
What are
big
the
as a
poor
foghorn.
boys?
The poor boys.
President Trump, I'm going to give
The
you
po'
10
boys.
seconds to respond, and then I have a
Oh, boy.
follow-up.
Joe Biden's
Oh,
line.
Joe.
Joe Biden's
Where
line
did
tonight
that
is,
come
"Come
in?
on."
You said
Where
you're
did-
Come
Abraham
on,
Lincoln.
guys.
Come on,
Come
man.
on.
No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done
Gabber
what
Lou,
I've done
how
for
are
the
you?
black
Thanks for
community.
joining the
I didn't
chat
say I'm
or the
Abraham Lincoln. I said
live stream,
Yeah,
whatever
no,
it's called.
Yeah, the chat.
Abraham
Yeah,
Lincoln.
yeah.
Has
Chat, live stream.
anybody
It
done
all
what
works.
I've done for the black community. Now,
I like
have
the
done
women's
nothing
rights
other
posts
than
there.
the crime
Good.
bill,
Women are always
which
important in any discussion.
God.
I don't know how to do the
tens of
symbols. Like I don't know how to do the male or
thousands
female
of
symbols with my
Me neither.
keyboard. That's
mostly
that's some
in
cool
jail.
All
cool
right,
stuff.
let me-
You know what?
let me
They
ask
remember
Vice
it
President
because if you
Biden
look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that you
Biden
treated
Okay,
them
about-
very, very badly.
The-
Just
the-
take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of
Joe's
young black
laughing a
men
lot.
who had small amounts
Yeah,
of
he's a
drugs
little
in
more
their
swagger
possession.
tonight,
They
but
are
he
sons, they
seems
are
more
brothers, their
empathetic.
fathers, their uncles, whose
He's
families are
still stumbling
to
on his
this
words a
day,
little
some of
bit,
them
right? But he's
suffering the
I feel like he's doing a
consequences.
better
So
and
speak to
stronger
those
performance
families.
than the
Why
first
should they
week
vote for you?
or the first
One of the
debate.
things is that in the
Definitely
80s,
agreed.
we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for
Trump
it,
looks pissed,
a bill on drugs
He's
and
just
how
doing
to deal
Trump,
with
you know.
drugs. It was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to
as
change the
much as he
sense,
can.
particularly the portion on
Rambles a
cocaine.
lot.
He looks
That's
like a
why
guy
I've been
who's been
arguing
waiting for
that,
the
in
waiter
fact, we
for
should
like
not
30 minutes
send
just to get his
anyone
check.
to jail for a
He's just like, where the
pure
fuck is my
drug
check?
offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money on. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done because I think maybe the American people
Amen.
have
I
now
agree.
seen
Yeah.
that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass
People that
those
get
laws relating to
because if
drugs.
you become like
but
a
they were not
felon
in
and
the
stuff
crime
with the
bill.
drug
But
problem,
why
you're
didn't he
pretty
get it
likely
done?
to just
See,
stay
it's
in
all
that
talk,
system.
no action with these
The revolving
politicians.
door.
Right.
Why didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president. You were vice president along with Obama as your president, your leader, for 8 years. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years to get it done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because
'Cause
You're
there's
all
checks and
talk
balances
no
and
action,
like.
We got a
Your
lot of it
response.
done. We released
Yeah.
38,000
'Cause you're not an
38,000
authoritarian?
prisoners left from-
You got
Yeah,
nothing
'cause
done.
you can't just like
38,000
snap
prisoners
things
were
into
released from
existence.
federal prison. There were over 1,000.
Drew, you're
people who
talking
were
like
given
someone who likes
clemency.
democracy
in
and
fact,
discussion,
We're the
so
ones who put in the legislation
Yeah.
saying we
Because
could
if we
look
had a
at
president
pattern
who could do
and practice of
anything
police
at any
departments
time
and
at
what
any
they were
will,
doing,
then
how
we'd
they were
have
conducting
problems.
themselves. I could go on, but we began the process.
Apparently.
We began the process. We lost an election. That's why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
I
Quick
just
response,
asked,
and then we're
I
gonna
just
move
asked
on
one
to climate
question.
change.
Why didn't you do it in the 8 years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands
Because he was the
of
vice president?
mostly
It's like
black
asking
young
why did
men in
Mike Pence
prison.
not
Now you're saying you're going to
solve
you're going to undo
the
that. Why
abortion
didn't you get it done?
crisis
You
for
had 8 years with
evangelicals in the
Obama.
U.S. Or
You know why,
Because-
Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President
Because
Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress.
yeah, it sounds like Trump.
That's the answer.
Well,
There it is.
you
That's
gotta
pretty
talk
good.
'em
Just
into
that's it.
Joe. Sometimes
All right.
you got to talk them into it.
We're
Yep.
going to move on to our next section,
Like I
which
did
is
with criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats.
It's a great
into it.
point.
Gentlemen,
You did what we
we're running
already
out of
done.
time, so we got to get on to
Okay.
climate change, please. You both have very different visions on climate change. President Trump, you say that environmental regulations
Oh,
have
God.
hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President Biden,
Man.
you have said you see addressing climate change as an opportunity to create new jobs. For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time? Starting with you, President Trump, you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs. I do love the environment, but what I want is the cleanest, crystal
I do
clear
love the
water,
environment.
the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which
I
is
went
a
on
big
a hike
standard that I
yesterday in
notice
my
Obama
private
goes with
mansion.
all the
It's
time.
beautiful.
Not
The
Joe. I
best
haven't heard
air,
Joe
the
use term 'cause
cleanest
I'm not sure he
air.
knows what it represents or means.
His
but I have heard
hands,
Obama
man, he
use
does
it.
this.
And we have the best carbon emissions
like he's stretching.
numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China.
Have we?
How filthy it is.
I don't
Look at
think that's true,
Russia.
though I don't have
Look
numbers.
At India, it's filthy. The air
You're right.
is
He's
filthy.
right. They are
The
filthy, so we
Paris
need to be in,
Accord
like,
took us out
universal-
because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated.
That's a key
very
Republican
unfairly.
argument
When
is
they
that
put us in
China's,
there,
well,
they did us a
China's
great
not perfect,
disservice.
so we don't
They were
have
gonna
to.
take
So we
away
don't have
our
to-
It's
ability.
like saying, well,
I
my
will
sister
not
smokes a shit
sacrifice
ton, so
tens of
Yeah.
I guess I
millions
can
of
too.
jobs,
Well, yeah, there
thousands
are
and
people in
thousands
worse
of
off than me,
companies
so why should I
because
improve
of
myself?
The Paris
Like, that's not a
Accord.
good
Exactly.
argument.
It was
That's
so
not a good
unfair.
argument.
China doesn't kick
It's a
in
horrible
until
argument.
2030. Russia
And China's
goes
doing
back to
more
a
than
low
us, actually,
standard,
and there's numbers to
we
back that up
kicked
if you
in
guys
right
need it.
away, it would have destroyed our businesses. So, you ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon emission standards that we've seen in many, many years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
Vice President Biden, 2 minutes to you, uninterrupted.
What does that even mean?
Climate change, climate warming, the global warming is the existential
Cole is
threat to
dying.
humanity.
Like Cole is
We
dead.
have a moral obligation
Oh, yeah.
to deal with it. And we're told by all the leading scientists in the world.
Studies show that
we don't
fracking
have
cities would
much
be down
time.
to switch if they
We're
could.
going to pass the point
Yeah.
of no return within the next 8 to 10 years. 4 more years of this man eliminating all the regulations that were put in by us to clean up the climate, to limit the limit of emissions will put us in a position where we're going to be in real trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity. I was able to get both all the environmental organizations as well as labor, the people worried about jobs, to support my climate plan. Because what it does, it will create millions of new good-paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 500,000
You see,
50,000
Goldman
charging
Sachs said that
stations
the
on our
economy would
highways
be more
so that
stable
we
with the
can own the
Biden
electric car market of the
election win.
future. In the meantime, China is doing that.
Yes,
We're
sir.
gonna be in a position
That's been David
where
Paxton's
see to
point
it
for
that
weeks.
We're going to take
Yeah.
Yeah,
4 million
it's
existing
actually true that
buildings
Democrats actually seem to be
and 2
better for the
million existing
economy.
homes
So it kind of
and
shoots in the
retrofit them
foot
so
the
they don't
Republican
leak as
argument.
much energy,
Right? It's just
saving
like
hundreds of
Trump.
millions
Trump's
of
just too
barrels of
wild. He's just
oil
too crazy.
in the process and
Yeah, he's bad for the
creating
economy,
significant
man. He's
number of
volatile.
jobs.
It's volatile,
And
He
by
can't
the way,
control his
the
rhetoric,
whole
yeah.
idea idea
Like,
of
he's horrible
what this
for
is
us.
all going to do. It's going to create millions
sorry,
of
it's
jobs.
true.
And it's going to clean the environment. Our health and our jobs are at
And the
stake.
Federal Reserve can't
That's
print
what's
money
happening.
forever.
And what right now, by the
Nope.
way, Wall Street firms
Though
indicate
that's
that
Trump's
my
plan, apparently.
My
While
plan
Rand
will, in
Paul's
fact,
crying
create
about how much we spend.
18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his. This is from Wall Street. And I'll create $1 trillion more in economic growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, you're
Today came out and said very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan, that his plan is an economic disaster. If you look at what he wants to do, you know, if you look at his plan, his
nothing to do with
environmental
climate.
plan, you know who developed it? AOC +3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line
It's
of
just
stuff,
not
but she
true.
knows
AOC
nothing
did not
about the
write
climate,
Biden's green
and
plan.
they're all hopping through hoops for AOC +3.
No, and he's actually been pretty against her Green New
The
Deal
real
plan.
plan costs $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the
Also, you
history of
see
our country
AOC, like,
for
live
100
streamed on
years,
Twitch
we would
to
not even come
400,000
close
people the
to
other
a number
day.
like that. When he says buildings, they want to take
Honestly, man,
buildings
I
down
would
because
actually
they
think
want to make
AOC
bigger
might be the
windows
worst thing
into
for
smaller
Biden.
windows. As far
Like,
as they're
I think
concerned,
she
if
might
you
be
had
the
no
worst
window,
possible
it could be
thing
a lovely
for Biden
thing.
getting
This
elected.
is the
But like, she's not
craziest
even
she's,
like a
like,
part of his
anybody has
administration.
ever
Like,
seen.
it's like
And this
No,
wasn't
but
done by
she's
smart
muddling
people.
the waters
This wasn't done by
in the
anybody.
rhetoric
Frankly, I don't even
where
know
a lot
if it
of
could be
moderates
good
and maybe
politically. They
uninformed
wanna
voters
spend
think that
$100
what she
trillion.
wants is what
That's
Biden
their real
does. You know what I
number. He's
mean?
trying to say
Like,
yeah, well, that's what
it's not
Trump
good for
wants to be.
moderates.
But she's not. The thing is that she's not though, right? That's the narrative. You're right that narrative is being portrayed by the right wing, but it's literally not
Right.
true,
The Vice
right?
President
AOC
Rod,
is
we're
not
running out of
deciding
time, and we
Biden's
have a lot more
policies at
questions
all.
to get to.
No.
So let's hear from the Vice
But it's a great
President.
talking
I have a
point.
number
And
of
Sure,
unfortunately,
sure.
it seems to be
But
working
it's-
amongst
it's
moderates.
based-
I
It's
don't
a
know where he
lie.
comes up with these numbers.
Yeah.
$100
Totally.
trillion.
I agree with you.
Give me a break. This plan was, this is plan endorsed by every major environmental group and every labor group. Labor, because they know the future lies. The future lies in us being able to breathe, and they know there are good jobs in getting us there. And by the way, the fastest growing industry in America is the electric, solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, 45, 50 bucks an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President Trump,
Excuse me.
please
We are
respond, and then I have some
We are
follow-up.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind
Said
than
the
you do.
quiet
It's
part out loud
extremely
about the Iraq
expensive,
war right there.
Kills all the birds. It's very
Perfect.
intermittent. It's got
I'm glad
lots of
someone
influence,
does, I
and they happen
guess.
to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist
Solar.
that said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big,
Find me a scientist
beautiful
who says
factories
that.
we need to compete
I like
with
that.
the world. So
False.
it's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry. You want and what about fracking?
All right,
Sadly,
let me-
Drew, there,
let me-
Trump's
let
not
me
totally
allow
wrong.
the
It all
Vice
is a
President
pipe
to
dream, at
answer.
least in the apparatus we have now with the leadership we have.
Yeah, but we have corporate.
Trump.
We have corporate.
Show
Like
the
we have
tape.
like
Put it on your website.
corporate
Put it on the
stimulus
website.
and like
The fact of the matter is
support of
lying.
fossil
Would you
fuels
rule out
and
banning
not the
fracking?
same
I
amount
do
of
rule
money
out
going
banning
towards
fracking
solar. So
because
it's not
the
even like a
answer,
fair
we need
Totally.
race.
We need
And solar is
You're right.
dollar efficient now.
industries to transition to get to ultimately a complete zero emissions by
very true.
2025. What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money in doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pod, and then
Excuse
we
me,
have.
he was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania?
Oh, he's showing
He'll
it
be
to us
against
tomorrow.
very soon because his party
Lovely.
is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking
You said
and or oil on
didn't say
federal
Let
land.
me ask this
I
final
did.
question in this section, And then I want to move
Yeah,
on to our final
I'm against that
section.
too. Fracking's
President Trump, people
detrimental
of color are much
to
more likely to live near
everything.
oil refineries
Water
and chemical
source,
plants. In
land,
Texas, there are families
health.
who worry the plants near them are making them
It's not a
sick.
long-term
Your
solution. It makes us
administration has
energy
rolled
independent
back
now,
regulations
so we don't
on
have to
these
buy for
kinds
as
of
much from
facilities.
Saudi Arabia.
Why should these
But it's not a
families
long-term
give you
solution.
another 4 years in office?
The families that
Agreed.
we're talking about are employed heavily, and they're making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, for Black, for Asian, it's 9 times greater, the percentage gain, than it was in 3 years, than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely. 9 times more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it, and I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic.
Okay.
We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry. And
No,
now
no,
it's
no.
very
That was
vibrant
not the
again.
United
Everybody
States.
has
We
very
covered
inexpensive
that. That was
gasoline.
not the United
President,
States
Yeah.
doing
your
that.
response, and then we're going to have a final
They had
question
their
for both
own.
of
They
you.
had their
My
own
response is that
ulterior
those people live
motives.
on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute. Chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And there are more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield wiper, there'd be oil slick in the window. That's why so many people in my state were dying and getting cancer. The fact is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them. It matters how you keep them safe. What do you do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final
Would he
question.
close
It
down
falls-
the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil
falls-
By the way, I would
industry?
transition from the oil industry.
What a
yes.
Great point.
Well, I don't think that's a good point, though.
That is a big statement.
That's a big
because
statement.
I would stop
Why would you do that?
because the oil industry pollutes
I
significantly.
think it's maybe not a
Listen,
good
here's
point,
the
but it's an
deal.
appealing
Let's
point.
get to that.
Yeah.
Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it
To me,
has
Joe
be
understands
replaced
the
by
people.
renewable energy
He understands the
over
struggle,
time.
and that's what that tells
Over
me.
time.
Oh, I
And
see
I'd
what you-
stop
oh, I see. I
giving
think I was
to the
ahead of you.
oil
I was
industry.
responding
I'd
to something
stop giving
else.
them
Okay,
federal
okay.
subsidies.
Gotcha,
You won't give
gotcha.
federal subsidies to the
You were right,
to
it was
the
a good
gas. Excuse me, to solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do
All
give it
right.
to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay.
Because
We have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question.
is he is
It's for
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember
right, come on,
that,
guys.
Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that Pennsylvania, Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let me give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I
Ohio.
have to get to the final question.
He's
Vice
so
President Biden.
desperate, dude.
He takes everything out of context, but the point is, look,
Yeah,
we
I
have
agree.
to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production. By 2050, totally.
All right. One
Is he gonna
final
get
question
China
to
to
both
do
of you.
it?
No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We
No,
have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right,
That'll
this
cost you
is
$1
about
trillion.
leadership, gentlemen. And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you.
We have to
Good-
make a country
Good question.
totally successful as it was
It's a really
prior
good
to the
question.
plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, et cetera. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history
Jesus.
of our country.
Great
Hispanic,
answer.
Women, Asian,
Like what?
people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new
Success is gonna
regulations
bring
on
us
everything.
together.
He
It's
will
an
kill
interesting
it.
point.
If he
It's an
gets in,
interesting
you will
angle,
have
yeah.
a depression, the likes of which you've never
Sounds
seen.
fascist.
Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say, I'm an American president. I represent all of you, whether you voted for me or against me. And I'm going to make sure that you're represented. I'm going to give you hope. We're going to move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose to move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism. And at the same time, we can make sure that our economy is being run and moved and motivated by clean energy, creating millions of new jobs. And that's the fact. That's what we're going to do. And I'm going to say, as I said at the beginning, what is on the ballot here is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that. You haven't been getting it the last 4 years.
All right. I want to thank you both for
That's
a very
it.
robust hour and a half, a fantastic
All right.
debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, thank you to Belmont University for
I don't think
hosting
we
us
got a
tonight.
bingo,
and most
though.
importantly, thank you to those
I guess
watching
you
Yeah,
could-
tonight.
I
Election Day is
I want to
November
dispute
3rd.
that for a second
Don't
because I think we
forget
might
to
have a
vote.
bingo.
Okay.
Thank you,
All right, we
everyone,
might.
and
Because
have a
because
great
there's
night.
Trump struggles to
There you
answer
have
the
it, second and
question.
final debate
Yeah.
of this 2020 election. Donald Trump,
I
Joe
feel
Biden,
like he
two
could
white
have
men
struggled
in
to
their
answer some
70s,
questions, or
Two
he walked
very
away from
different
them. I don't know, but I guess no bingo.
Okay. So do you want to do a little post analysis?
Yeah, let's just do a 10-minute post analysis. Might as well just keep it recording, or less than 10 minutes, whatever works. But yeah, let's.
Well, hold on. Do you want me to keep it recording, or do you want me to have this as a separate file for you to edit easier?
Yeah, why don't you do that actually?
All right. So we're gonna end.
Make
We're gonna
life
end
easier.
the first recording right now.